What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, we're just a few days away from 2023 starting, and you know what that means. New Nintendo Switch Pro rumors are certainly about to be popping up, but yesterday we had some information get out there that exploded online, as it appears we may not be talking about a Switch Pro next year, and in fact, we could be looking towards Nintendo's next generation system, and it may take a bit longer to get out than we were thinking. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Nvidia and how it looks like they're getting ready to introduce their 4070 Ti. It just looks a bit familiar. And we'll also be talking about some patents that have been popping up online for Nintendo, as it may be showing the next wacky idea that they have up their sleeve. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the SpawnWave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with Yuji Naka and the entire situation that he's found himself in with insider trading at Square Enix. Well, things have escalated a bit more, and now it appears he's being indicted for those allegations. We can see this posted up over on VGC, where it says, according to NHK, the Tokyo District Public Prosecutor's Office has determined that Naka had confidential information that Square had planned to develop a Final Fantasy spin-off, that being the First Soldier, with mobile developer A-Team Entertainment. Using this information, the Sonic the Hedgehog creator purchased $834,000 of company stock, with the knowledge that stock value in the company would rapidly rise following the public announcement of the collaboration. Okay, when we first heard about this, it was mentioned that he purchased $20,000 to $30,000. Now it's over $800,000. And while either one would have been insider trading, shows a bit more confidence when you put up almost $1 million of your own money that, yeah, something will probably be happening here in the future. And you have some insider knowledge on the series of events that's going to happen that would skyrocket the stock. I guess the one thing you can say, though, is now when Yuji Naka's name is being brought up, it's not alongside of Balan Wonderland and how bad that game is, but you also had to commit insider trading, apparently, to get that game pushed into the background. Also, we did get some more info on Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which I'm really looking forward to here, about 3 months or so away. And we got a rating for it. Along with that rating, we had some information as to why it got the rating it did, which was 16+, this out of Singapore, and we can see the description, where it reads, at the same time, the most brutal of such episodes can show how Cal Kestis cuts off the limbs of enemies with a lightsaber, but without explicit details and bloodshed. This giving it the ADV 16 rating from the Singapore Rating Commission Board. And there's a lot of talk around Star Wars games when they come out with lightsabers and if there's dismemberment, mostly because, yes, the big Star Wars fans look at lightsabers and go, when you get hit with one, there should be dismemberment because it's a lightsaber. But with something like Fallen Order, didn't really have that at all. There have been mods that have kind of thrown that in there, and then you're just hacking up stormtroopers left and right. It does appear that there will be some sort of dismemberment in this game, but I don't think it's going to be overblown necessarily, because Disney apparently likes to really hold off on a lot of dismemberment just because they want it to be more impactful when it does happen. And yeah, that also is something that is taken into account for different video games. So at least there will be some, I'm just not expecting a lot. Oh, and while we are looking towards Pokemon Black and White, I would assume, as being the next remakes, something else has sort of popped up that had people thinking maybe Gamefreak would kind of play around with the release timeline for the remakes. We can see this over on Twitter from PokeExperto saying Nintendo, Creatures, and Gamefreak have re-registered the Pokemon X and Y logos in Japan, going on to say that they don't know the reason as to why. And while this did immediately spurn speculation that they would be doing remakes for X and Y, which I think it'll happen eventually, years and years from now, this most likely is just them keeping up any registrations they would need to overall to keep things up to date. And I think their next remake would be Black and White somewhere into the future here. X and Y, they're very well-received Pokemon games, but I think we're still a ways off from those getting any kind of remake. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the good old Switch Pro. Going into 2023, I was expecting rumors to pop up somewhere, I'm sure, because it happens every year. I mean, we got to the point where Bloomberg was doing reports on it, and Nintendo was coming out and refuting them publicly, which is not at all like Nintendo and what they would typically do. But this has gone on essentially since the Switch came out to varying degrees of success. As an example, part of the report from Bloomberg is that there would be a 7-inch OLED screen, and they got it down to the exact manufacturer who'd be providing it, but there was no 4K capabilities to go along with that for the Switch OLED model. And now, going into the new year, we were expecting some rumors, but this time things have flipped a bit, as now it appears Nintendo may have canceled the Switch Pro or the new Nintendo Switch. This was from Digital Foundry, and as soon as it got out there, a lot of conversation exploded online around it. We can see this transcription from Reset Era, and this is for the DF Direct Weekly number 92, which I will leave linked down below in the sources, from John Linneman, who says, "So I think at one point internally, from what I can understand from talking to different developers, is that there was some sort of mid-generation Switch update planned at one point, and that seems to be no longer happening. And thus, it's pretty clear that whatever they do next is going to be the actual next generation hardware," and goes on to sort of speculate that he doesn't think that's happening in 2023. In fact, it may not even be announced in 2023. Kind of feel like Nintendo would want to announce the Switch successor and then even launch it in the same year. It was a bit different going from the Wii U to the Switch because the Wii U just was not selling at all. So if you announce the Switch before Christmas and the holidays, who cares? The Wii U wasn't going to sell anyway, and then they'll be launching it that following March, which they did to great success. The Switch has gone on to become their best-selling home console and certainly has a shot at that DS, but we'll see how things continue over the next 3 to 4 years. Seriously, we could end up in 2024 before a next-gen system for Nintendo is even announced. And then there are a lot of questions around that as well. To me, it is getting a little late for that new Nintendo Switch to happen. If it wasn't going to happen next to The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and that's out in May, so we're running out of time even for an announcement and then pairing of new hardware with that game, then do you really announce a mid-gen refresh when we're in the 7th year of the system? It's not really mid-generation anymore. I mean, at that point, you are sort of taking away from the leap that you could have with the new hardware that comes out, which of course would bring stronger hardware for better resolution, frame rates, all the things that are brought up right now, just because technology continues to move along and the Tegra has been evolving behind the scenes, as it seems like there have been updates for a certain chip that is most likely going to be used by Nintendo probably years from now in whatever they call the next Switch. And there are a lot of questions as to how Nintendo would be handling this anyway. Would it still be the same model as like a hybrid device? Would they try to add something in that maybe is a bit too creative, where they pull a Wii U situation? Or will they just keep it status quo, move along, make the system more powerful, keep that hybrid concept, and somehow still be able to separate it from it just being viewed as a Switch? To me, the only thing I care about is keep the hybrid concept and make sure the games are backwards compatible. That is the only hiccup that would really frustrate me, is if we never got a Switch Pro or a new Nintendo Switch and Nintendo did not have the capability to have the current games playable on the new hardware that would be more powerful. So as long as they meet those two criteria for me, which is hybrid system, backwards compatible, great. We'll roll until 2024 most likely until we see it, and then I assume they rush towards the holiday release for it to launch in, but there you have it. It seems now we are going into 2023 with low to no expectations for any sort of new hardware for Nintendo, and that is an interesting spot to be in because we're basically to the point now where we just expect the rumors to start flying all over the place for a Switch Pro, but not this time. Although I guess the best way to cover for being wrong about a Switch Pro is to say that Nintendo canceled it in the background. I mean, it's been hearsay essentially the whole way through it at this point for it, but Digital Foundry, they weren't as gung-ho, it seemed, from what I could tell, as places like Bloomberg and others that were putting reports out there that, yeah, there is a 4K Switch coming. Digital Foundry always kind of out on the outside talking about it themselves, and this is just them actually going against the idea of new hardware in 2023, which for what they do, they would probably want there to be some sort of new hardware coming out from Nintendo so they can do all kinds of analysis for it. Next up, let's talk about Nvidia and the RTX 4070 Ti. I saw this headline pop up and I just kind of laughed to myself because it was so expected to see this after Nvidia unlaunched or basically pulled the card back from retail. Remember, we were going to get a 4080 12GB model and then the 4080 16GB card that did release, but we can see this posted up. This one's from Tom's Hardware. Chinese Nvidia RTX 4070 Ti price listing matches canceled. 4080 12GB model. Here's an image of the 4070 Ti box. This is from Baidu. And all of the pricing around this does appear to line up because there is, as is mentioned here, a retail tax rate of 13% in China. Moving that down, you do end up with a $900 retail price, which, yeah, matches the 4080 12GB model. And if you remember, Nvidia sort of tried to pass that card off as the main difference being the video RAM, but once you started looking down the spec sheet and compared it to the 4080 16GB model, it was pretty clear that they were basically different cards completely, and everyone looked at that and said, are you sure this isn't a 4070 that's just being named a 4080 with the 12GB video RAM? And that's kind of what looks like is happening here. They decided to unlaunch it and now launch it again just with the correct sticker that we all figured it should have had in the first place. So we'll see when Nvidia decides to announce and launch this thing, obviously heading into 2023, the first quarter or something. I mean, we also have, CES coming up and then GDC, and there's a lot of tech events that'll be popping up here over the next 3 to 4 months, but I wouldn't be shocked if they just made a formal announcement through press release and pushed the 4070 Ti out there without making too much of a spectacle on stage, because everyone would probably just look around and roll their eyes a bit. Next up, let's talk about an interesting patent from Nintendo that could show maybe a strange and wacky idea that they've been playing around with, and who knows, could come to market. This is the company that put out Labo, so anything's really possible, but we can see this patent here. It's titled the Image Processing System, Non-Transitory Computer Readable Storage Medium, having stored there an image processing program and image processing method. Very straightforward title there, but this was filed actually multiple times now, but most recently, July 20th, 2022. So it does appear to be something Nintendo is updating and kind of working on here. We have an image, and you can sort of see that there's a head-mounted display, and it's kind of being looked at right now as either augmented reality or virtual reality. And you can see people around the main user there with the head-mounted display on. And the biggest thing that it appears Nintendo is trying to do is make VR or AR less of a lonely experience. They even have a game console pointed out here in the image, as well as several smart devices like phones or tablets that are being held by users outside of the main user with the HMD. And we've seen Nintendo play around with augmented reality and virtual reality. You see virtual reality with Labo. They tried it. It was odd because you would hold Labo up to your face and you would play through The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It wasn't a great experience necessarily, but they at least attempted it. It was probably more of an experiment with Labo than anything else. But I do think that having Nintendo involved in something like virtual reality or augmented reality would just be good for the medium overall, because Nintendo would show up with some weird idea, and that's, again, how you kind of push the medium forward, by really just throwing ideas at a wall and seeing what sticks. I like the idea, though, of a company like Nintendo trying to figure out how to make it a more social experience with people who are directly in the room with you. There have been some games that have come out where you will rely on people outside of the VR headset to convey information to you. Here's what. Everyone keeps talking and nobody explodes, and basically the person in the VR headset is trying to defuse a bomb, whereas everyone outside of it is going through an instruction manual trying to tell you what wires to clip. That's a fun idea. But if you are in a room and you put the VR headset on it does become a lonely experience outside of those kind of social games, since no one else can see what you do. So I like the idea of Nintendo attempting to tie in augmented reality where you can see what's around you, having a camera involved, even looking down at the table, and multiple other people being involved using their phones or even a game console of some kind. Will this ever come to market? Hard to say, but it's a company that brought out Labo, which was foldable cardboard that you put your Switch and Joy-Cons in, so anything's possible. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Masahiro Sakurai in a recent interview that he conducted where he did reflect on his time so far on YouTube and seems to be enjoying it. The comments are generally positive and he has a good like to dislike ratio, but he did also talk a bit about his current life when it comes to retirement and even game development, which we can see this posted up by Push Dustin. Is it's a really cool thread to go through here on Twitter. I will link this down below if you want to get more information around Sakurai's answers and everything kind of going on with Sakurai now. But confirms that he is semi-retired. He is 52 after all. When Smash for 3DS and Wii U and Ultimate, he spent 9 years in active development. Sakurai felt that if he is just continuously making games full-time, his life will be over before he realizes it. And it got a lot of people talking about, would Sakurai be involved with the next Smash Brothers? I feel like he generally closes the door on Smash Brothers only to reopen it and then be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's develop a new Smash Brothers game. And I do kind of think the next Smash Brothers will have to be a reboot of the entire franchise, because where do you go from here where it's like everyone's here, this massive collaboration with Sora to cap everything off? It's not much else you can do with it other than to reinvent the entire wheel for it. But Sakurai being semi-retired, I kind of get the vibe that there is something else he would be doing that wouldn't be on the scale of Smash Brothers. And sure, that could be a new Kid Icarus game. It could be a port even for the 3DS version. Who knows really how far he wants to take it, but I do kind of get the feeling that maybe he really is done with Smash going forward, with Smash Ultimate being kind of the swan song for him. And now I'd look for other creative endeavors like his YouTube channel, or maybe working to get Kid Icarus back off the ground, starting with that 3DS port. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, do you think Nintendo will make a push into VR in the next 5 years? 84% say no, 16% say yes. And really, when people don't expect Nintendo to do something weird is when they do something weird, like Labo, and they're kind of due for some weird announcement or product to bring to market. And I'm kind of thinking VR or AR wouldn't be a bad thing for Nintendo to at least attempt and put their own spin on. Just having more creative ideas in the space could probably work to push VR and augmented reality into the mainstream. And Nintendo is a company I think could introduce some new aspect to it while also trying to simplify it a bit more at the same time. So that's one of the reasons I wouldn't mind seeing Nintendo enter the space a bit more seriously than what they did with Labo. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Dynamics saying, I hope Capcom brings new games to the Switch that aren't cloud versions. Yeah, that's my only concern about the Switch going on, say, into 2024 as Nintendo's main platform, is that more of these developers and publishers just continue to opt for a cloud version so they don't have to worry about trying to figure out how to get ports onto the Switch. It's still using a chip from 2015, and we've already seen some games just go that route, even though it makes sense for it to be a native port, like Kingdom Hearts. You feel like that would have sold well on the Switch as a boxed physical copy or even just a native digital release, but they opted to go with the cloud version. And I'm kind of concerned that that may become more of the norm over the next 2 years. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was Nintendo apparently canceling the Switch Pro? Not necessarily the rumors I was expecting to hear going into 2023. Then also, what about Nvidia releasing their 4070 Ti that looks suspiciously like a 4080 12GB model? And then Nintendo and VR. Do you think that's something that could actually work? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.